Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Master Duel Super Heavy Samurai deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because we just got some insane support for Super Heavy Samurai in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, giving us extremely powerful cards like Prodigy Wakashi, which takes this deck to one of the most powerful decks to play on Master Duel now. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description for a single video, getting your signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Super Heavy Samurai Prodigy Wakashi. This card is the entire deck and is so important to this build because this card has an insane ability. If you have no spell and trap cards in your graveyard, you can place a Super Heavy Samurai Pendulum monster from your deck, except another copy of this card, in your other Pendulum zone. Then special summon this card, which is a great ability to be able to put your copy of Monk Big Ben K in your other Pendulum zone. But this card also has a really cool monster effect. If you have no spells and traps in your graveyard, you can discard a monster to be able to special summon a Super Heavy Samurai monster from your hand or deck in defense position. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Super Heavy Samurai monsters. And if this card is used as a synchro material and is added to your action deck face up, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone, basically giving you your Pendulum scale, which is really cool about this card. This card is definitely a 3 of in the build and a card you want to get to extremely quickly to do full combo. We then play 2 copies of Monk Big Ben K. This card is only in the deck to be able to put in the Pendulum scale with your copy of Prodigy Wakashi, and that you're only ever using its Pendulum effect in this build. That if you control a Super Heavy Samurai monster, then you can add a Super Heavy Samurai Soul monster from your deck to your hand, which is a really powerful effect for this card to have because you're usually going to control Prodigy Wakashi when you use this card's ability. We then play 3 copies of Motorbike. Motorbike is basically the Rhoda for the deck, and this card is amazing in this build. If you have no cards in your graveyard that are spells and traps, you can discard this card to add a Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Motorbike, which is a really cool ability for this card to have to get you basically any Super Heavy Samurai that you need. We then play 3 copies of Soul Piercer. Soul Piercer is definitely a 3 of in the build, and it's 3 more searchers for the deck, because this card has the ability you can target a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, and equip this card from your hand or to your side of the field to that targeted monster. And if it attacks when it's equipped with this card, that monster can do piercing damage to your opponent, but the main effect you use on this card is if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, then you can add a Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand, which is amazing because this deck actually has a Link 1 to be able to step into that is actually a 3 in Master Duel to be able to just summon out this card to your side of the field, link it away for your copy of Scarecrow, and then make a copy of your Prodigy Wakashi add to hand off the ability of your Soul Piercer when it touches the graveyard, which is so cool. We then play 3 copies of Wagon. Wagon is really good as a 3 of as well in this build because this card just helps you out a lot. Because when this card is normal or special summon, you can change this card's battle position and then it has the ability that this card can attack while in face up defense position. And when it does, you apply the defense for the damage calculation. If you have no spells and traps in the graveyard, you can also change this face up defense position card that you control to attack position. And if you do, add a Super Heavy Samurai Soul monster from your deck to your hand, which is a great ability because we have a lot of cards we can search off this card's ability. We then play, for our 1 of Super Heavy Samurais, we're going to be playing a single copy of Scales. I feel like you really only need a single copy of Scales because this card is really good in the deck though. That if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can actually target a level 4 or lower Super Heavy Samurai monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position, which is great to extend your plays. But I feel like 1 is really all you need. We then play a single copy of Super Heavy Samurai Stealthy. Stealthy is really good as a 1 of in this build as well because this card is just a good extender. If you have no spells and traps in the graveyard, you can special summon this card in your hand, which is a great ability just to instantly get this card out on your side of the field. And if you have no spells and traps in the graveyard, quick effect, you can tribute this card and then target a spell or trap in your opponent's graveyard and set it to your field but banish when it leaves the field, which is great to be able to use cards that your opponent might be using against you. We then play a single copy of Soul Gaia. Soul Gaia is just a great extender in the deck as well. This card lets you target a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control and equip this card from your hand or field to that monster that you control, and the equipped monster is treated as a tuner monster, which helps you step into a bunch of really cool plays. And if you have no spells and traps in the graveyard and this card is equipped to a monster by this card's effect, you can special summon this equipped card to your side of the field, which is great just to extend your plays and get you an additional level 4 on the field. We then play a single copy of Soul Peacemaker. Soul Peacemaker is awesome in the deck as a 1-of, but again, I feel like 1 is all you need in this build. It lets you target a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control and equip this card from your hand or field to that monster, and when the monster is equipped, when this card is equipped to a monster by this effect, monsters that your opponent control cannot attack monsters that you control except the equipped monster, and you can also attribute a monster that you control equipped with this card by this effect to special summon any Super Heavy Samurai monster you want from your deck, which is great to get any of them that you need on the field with this card's ability. We then also play a single copy of Soul Horns. Soul Horns is great in this build as a 1-of, because this card has the ability that when it's equipped to a Super Heavy Samurai monster, it basically lets you target that Super Heavy Samurai monster, and it equips this card from your hand or to your side of the field to that monster, just like your copy of Soul Peacemaker, and it can make a second attack during each battle phase, which is a really cool ability just to help you OTK your opponent, especially if you equip to a monster like Brave, your new Synchro monster. It just gives you so much damage in the deck. We then play a single copy of Ancient Gearbox. Ancient Gearbox is great in the deck because if this card is added from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you get an Earth Machine monster from your deck that has 500 attack or defense points from your deck to your hand, which you're always adding your copy of Tunneler off this card's ability, which is just a great card to be able to grab, because this card helps you recycle a bunch of cards into the deck, which is just really cool. Because this card has the ability to manage this card from your graveyard to be able to target 5 Earth Machine monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and then draw 2 cards, which is just a really powerful ability. We then also play a single copy of Terverion King Regulus. You can search this card in the deck, which is why we just play a single copy, but this card is a walking negate that's so easy to put on your side of the field. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the hand traps we're playing in this build. So for the hand traps, guys, we're going to start off with 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom's a definite 3-of in the build, as this card just stops your opponent from touching the deck. We then play 3 copies of Max C. This card is insane that it's at 3 in Master Duel, and it's just such a powerful card overall in this build, because we want to draw into the deck to get more combo pieces, and every time our opponent special summons, we get to draw a card, which is so good. We then play 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird is definitely a 3-of as well, because this card just basically stops your opponent from searching for the rest of the turn. We then play 2 copies of Nibiru. Nibiru just breaks your opponent's board, and basically stops them from extending, while also giving us a monster on our side of the field, which is just so cool about this card. We then play 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. This card pops cards on the field, making this card a really good 2-of in the build. We then play 2 copies of Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is great in this deck as a 2-of just to stop your opponent's monster effects. We then play 2 copies of Cyframe Gear Gamma. Gamma is currently at 2 in Master Duel, so this card is really good to be able to use almost like a Called by the Grave for the deck, to make sure that if your opponent does hit you with a hand trap, you have a way to stop it, and this card just helps you out a lot for that particular play. We then also play a single copy of Driver to go along with our copies of Gamma, to basically make sure that we can go in for our copy of Gamma to protect our plays. We don't play any spells and traps in this build at all, but this card is really good in the deck. It's basically used like a Called by the Grave to basically stop our opponent from going in and stopping our plays, and just basically stopping our opponent from hand trapping us, which is really important. It's why we play so many hand traps in this particular build, is because we have the room in the deck to play those hand traps to stop our opponent. We don't play spells and traps because our Super Heavy Samurai monsters actually make it so we can't play spells and traps, because their effects will not go off if we have a spell or trap in the graveyard. So you just want to play as many hand traps as possible to make sure that you have a lot of ways to counter your opponent. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of Super Heavy Samurai Brave. This card is absolutely massive. It has 4,000 defense points, and this card can attack while in defense position, applying its defense points for the damage calculation. So basically it comes out with 4,000 attack points that it's going to attack with while in defense position. And if a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can destroy a Super Heavy Samurai monster that you control instead, which is really cool to be able to just give you that level of protection. And also once per turn, if your opponent activates a spell or trap card or effect except during the damage step, you can draw until you have 3 cards in your hand, just helping you dig into the deck for more hand traps. We then play a single copy of Baron de Fleur. This card is just a walking negate and can pop cards on the field, which is really nice. 1 copy of Psyframe Lord Omega, because this card can rip a card out of the opponent's hand. Plus we play the copy of Gamma and Driver in the deck, so it just helps out a lot to be able to get rid of a card in the opponent's hand. We then play a single copy of Stardust Dragon Excel Synchro. This card is great to be able to play in the deck, because it helps us step into Baron de Fleur, and it's really helpful in this build. We then play a single copy of Ninja Sarutobi. Ninja Sarutobi is great in this deck, because this card can also attack while in defense position, and it also is great because once per turn, during either player's turn, if you have no spells and traps in your graveyard, then you can actually target a spell or trap on the field, destroy it, and if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent, which is great about this card. We then play a single copy of Giganta X. You're using this card to search out Ancient Gearbox, so you can search out your copy of Tunneler, which is just really good to be able to do in this build. We then play a single copy of Baguska. Baguska is just in the deck so you can lock the field down just in case you need to. Play a single copy of Merrymaker. You're using this card to be able to make your copy of Gigantic Champion Sargus, because this card gives you a 4 material Zeus and also searches out your copy of Therion King Regulus for free when it's summoned to your side of the field, which is extremely helpful. We then play a single copy of Double A Zeus. Double A Zeus is great for board wiping the field and just helps out overall in the deck a lot, just to be able to deal with your opponent's field. Play a single copy of Auroradon. Auroradon is great because it gives us tokens on our side of the field and has some really cool abilities with it being able to destroy a card on the field by actually tributing a token, which is really cool to be able to do, and I love that about this card. We then play a single copy of Asa because we play so many Earths in the deck that it just makes sense to play this card. Play a single copy of Cleafort Genius. Cleafort Genius is really good in any Pendulum deck because this card has the ability once per turn you can target a face-up card on either player's field except this card, and both those cards have their effects negated until the end of the turn. And when 2 or more monsters are special summoned at the same time to zones this card points to, you can actually add a level 5 or higher machine monster from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow. This is our Link 1 that's still at 3 in Master Duel, and it's a really good card because it's basically a Link 1 that you can use your copy of Soul Piercer to turn it into a 1-card combo to get your copy of Prodigy Wakashi. But this card is just really good in the deck overall because it also has the ability that if you have no spells and traps in the graveyard, you can discard a card and target a Super Heavy Samurai monster in your graveyard and special summon it to a zone this card points to. And Defense Position, which is a great ability for this card to have, but this card cannot be used as link material, which is an effect that you got to keep in mind as you're playing this deck. But the really cool thing is we have no spells and traps in the graveyard. You also take no battle damage from attacks involving this card because it does have 0 attack points, which is why we don't want to play any spells and traps in this deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Super Heavy Samurai before, you should definitely give this deck a try in Master Duel because it's super powerful. Now that we have Prodigy Wakashi, and it's just so good. This deck is going to be so powerful in Master Duel, and it's insane that it's basically at full power. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can come for our notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.